meeting is now open. We'll dispense with the flag salute and we don't have one.
We're like the Democratic Convention. No flag, no with it, Charlie.
We'll turn the meeting over to Charlie.
Okay, so things have been moving right along. And I was just trying to make sure that I had the latest information for you. The commissioners met at 9:45 this morning and approved this agreement that you have here, subject to legal counsel's review of the changes proposed by the district in section 2.2. A careful line-by-line comparison of the final agreement subject to the red line version, and the final determination of total mental health dollars. So the reason that there were some uncertainties is, let me tell you a little bit of what's been happening for the last couple of days.
I'm just going to shut this so I can hear it better.
Okay. We have been working diligently to come to an agreement between the county and the district to take over as of August 1st of the mental health department. This agreement calls for two principal features. The first part is a management phase, and then the second portion is an operational phase. In the management phase, what that calls for is, until we become a CMHP, Community Mental Health Provider. That's a designation granted by the state. So we have to make an application to the state to become approved. We become the Mental Health Authority.
Any ideas on the timeline on that, Charlie? Whatever it is.
A lot of ideas. We were originally, when I contacted the state and because part of it is, once you have that agreement, then we would enter into an agreement with the GOBI for the delivery of Medicaid services. So there's a combination of types of services that are delivered. What GOBI contracts for is the Medicaid outpatient and inpatient services for all of the patients that are assigned to the CCO. So some of that is delivered here in Lake County, some of it is delivered at the hospital here for inpatient acute patients, and then some of the patients may have to be sent elsewhere in the state for longer-term care or residential care, other kinds of things like that. So in talking to the state, before we submitted our response to the RFP, I talked to both GOBI and to the state about what would be the process, the timeline. And what GOBI said is, and their chief operating officer said, first you become approved by the state, then we enter into an agreement with GOBI. At that time, the state, the estimated time would be, maybe if they moved quickly, it could be 45 days. So what we said in this agreement is, during that time period, whatever time period that would take, we would manage the county's CMHP. To do that, you have to have an executive director who is qualified. To do that, we would have an agreement with Community Counseling Solutions, CCS. That's Kimberly Lindsay's business.
Currently doing the job.
And she's currently doing the job for the county. So what we would do is, we would say to the county, we are now responsible, we'll pay all the employees, we'll make all the expenses, and we will have a contract with Community Counseling Solutions to deliver that service for the next 90 days. Once we get our approval from the state to be a CMHP for the district, then we would go into the operational phase. And the operational phase would be the extent of the full agreement. that would last as a minimum of 5 years with a renewal of a 10-year subsequent renewal clause. So it's really a 15-year contract. It can be terminated as it goes through this agreement for cause if we don't deliver what we're supposed to. But it doesn't have a 90-day for whatever reason. And that really protects both the county as well as the district. Because while you all as a board are thinking this is a good situation for our community, should you not be board members and new board members come in, they could just as easily as a change in commissioners say, oh, we don't want to have this deal anymore. And then now that leaves the county in a pickle because the county has to deliver the service. It also allows us as a district, if we're going to build anything to accommodate the needs of the behavioral health service, when we go to the bank and we borrow money, we have a commitment of a longer term time period, which means a longer term revenue stream. All right? So it gives confidence to the county that we're going to deliver on our what we intend to. It gives confidence to us that we have this business line to focus on, and it gives confidence to our bankers. It gives everyone a good level of confidence. So that's in the operation, or in the operational period. We can go through this line item by line item, but just so that you have an awareness of how things have changed. Since yesterday, and this is after you and I had our conversation, we talked with the state, and on that call was Kimberly Lindsay, and I were talking with the state. And the state said if we finish a preliminary application by the end of tomorrow, they'll grant us the CMHP Monday, August 1st.
Wow.
For what?
Temporary.
For 90 days, and then during that 90-day period, they'll come out and do their evaluations,
Right.
and they'll make sure that we are doing all the things that we are expected to do. What we said is we would, for all intents and purposes, mirror what the county's policies are. Some of them are our policies, but we'll go through that. And they said, you know, it's currently a CMHP, so it's not that they're out of compliance. It's just that we'll take those, and then we, as we hire an executive director, we will go through and improve wherever we can, and make it a better and stronger program. That's our intent. And the state said, that sounds wonderful. That was as of yesterday at noon. During the course of that day, I got a note from Jay Collins last night. And this is a letter from Henry O'Keefe, who sent a letter, or an email last night to the commissioners saying, I'm writing this email to follow up on a conversation I had with Jay Collins, Lake County Business Director, this afternoon regarding subcontracting Medicaid responsibilities that have been delegated to Lake County Mental Health. For the purpose of the ORS for the Medicaid contract, in their agreement with Lake County, it is subject to the fact that the county cannot assign or transfer that agreement. We're not asking that they do that. During the operation, during the management phase, we would manage the business on behalf of the county. But what Gobi said is, Gobi would like to make it known that in light of recent events, it is consenting to the county subcontracting its Medicaid responsibilities delegated to it in the agreement to Lake Health District for the purpose of providing the Medicaid services referenced into the agreement until the Gobi Board of Directors enters into both a delegation agreement and a membership agreement with an entity qualified to provide the services referenced in the agreement. Secondly, Gobi deems it a necessary condition of the county entering into a subcontract for the responsibilities and services referenced above for the Gobi source funding dedicated to such responsibilities and services to be strictly limited to only capitation checks issued after today, Wednesday, July 27th, and such other Gobi source funds as Gobi may, from time to time, explicitly authorize in writing. The intent here is to maintain the established Gobi source funding reserves currently in the possession of the county until Gobi has entered into a membership agreement and delegated agreement with an entity qualified to provide the services referenced in the agreement. Based upon information submitted to Gobi by the county, Gobi estimates that the Gobi source funding reserve figure currently exceeds $950,000. Gobi is currently working with the county to establish the precise dollar amount, which we expect to do so shortly. And the reason that that is important is at present in the county coffers are approximately $1.3 million that is to be used for the delivery of mental health services. And it is the intent, and in this agreement, that the county will transfer all those dollars to the district. What Gobi is saying is 950 of that you can't transfer as of August 1st. You need to hold it, with the exception of the monthly capitation check. So the way Gobi pays the county to deliver behavioral health services is through a capitation process. Capitation means that if there are roughly 1,000 Medicaid recipients in Lake County, it's actually about 1,800, but I don't know the exact number. They're paid, what Gobi does in the capitation process is it takes the total cost for delivery of outpatient behavioral health services, creates a pool and says, for the year, for that number of patients, we will pay you X dollars total. Then they divide it by 12 and say that's the monthly payment per person. That's called capitation. Okay? So the Gobi then transfers that money every month to the county, which would then come to the district when we enter into an agreement. And for that, we pay for supplies and salaries and all the costs to deliver mental health services. Okay? There is another pool as part of those total mental health dollars. There's a pool for inpatient hospital. There's a pool for out-of-area costs. So it's described out. I mean, you take the total dollars and put it in buckets.
Those aren't Gobi funds.
They are Gobi funds, but they establish different budgets, if you will.
Okay.
And because we're only contracting, and that's the part that we have to enter into, is a contract with Gobi that says we'll be responsible to deliver this here in this county. We'll agree with Gobi who's going to do inpatient service, and we'll put money in that. They'll put money into a pool. So if we say we need to send one of our recipients, Lake County recipients, to go to that inpatient facility, it comes out of a different pool of dollars. Okay? So we don't get all the dollars to deal with. We just get a portion. Gobi manages the other dollars.
Now, is that a memo stating that once we sign up certifying with Gobi, then we have access to the 900,000?
Yes. So that's why Gobi didn't want to transfer or have that money transferred until an agreement is established.
Okay.
And based on my conversations with Jay last night, he anticipates that Gobi will have their board meeting within 2 weeks. So between now, if the state gives us the authorization like they said they would, effective August 1st, we actually bypass the first component of this agreement, the management component, and we go directly into the operational. This is actually a better thing for both us and for the county. But the state hasn't done it yet. I haven't finished the application. And we are working very diligently. Jen's working very diligently. We're scrambling. Larry's helping out, and so are lots of other people. And what the state has said is, we understand. They actually apologized to me and said, we're sorry we didn't respond quicker, because now we know we put you under the gun. So, for example, they wanted to make sure that we do a proper criminal background check, which we have to do for all hospital employees. And as one of the evaluators said, we expect that you'll do that, but don't wait until August 29th to do that. I said, we started this already yesterday, Wednesday morning, as we've been working to bring the Lake County employees into the district. We're not going to screw it. He said, that's great. We want to do this the right way. So they're going to work with us on this, and I think that's very forthcoming. We have a fair amount to do to get it done. So if you'd like to review this agreement, I can tell you where we're at. As I said, the last part was that the commissioners actually approved this agreement, subject to the last few things. And Gwen Griffin has been our attorney drafting this agreement and working with Jim Bailey, who's legal counsel for the county. And they had just some they're important, but they're not, they would not stop us from moving forward. So in phase one, the transition of the agreement calls for, as I said, on page 2, the management, I'm sorry I didn't get this out to you sooner, but just has been going fairly quickly. And it's not a whole lot different from what I sent you the original draft version. There's been some slight changes. The management phase, the operational phase, what we would do is enter into an agreement, a lease agreement with the county for $1 per year. That is triple net. We have a draft agreement. It's a very simple one-page document. We're still Jim Bailey just hadn't finished. Jim Bailey actually drafted that. And we have just a couple of issues with that. But it's so, at $1 in triple net, it's pretty simple deal. Any repairs that we would do would come out of mental health dollars. Okay. The county does not wish to have any of their general funds used to fix that building. When I sent you out the note that our initial estimate was in the ballpark of $100,000 to fix the building. We have significant work to do. So what we have to make sure is, if we're going to spend that kind of money, is that the best use of community health dollars?
Did they have any dollars in the county budget set aside for any type of upgrade?
What Jake said and Commissioner Winter said to me was they were not aware of the level of trouble. And part of that, I'm sure, is with everyone being so busy, things may not have been championed as well as something else. And so the commissioners didn't put their full attention to making repairs to the building. That would be my guess. So, from our standpoint, while we have a lease for a year and good evergreen, if we want it, we have near-term, short-term, and long-term questions about location. Number one, near-term, we got to maintain this building. We can't move anybody right away. So we've got to do some things to make it right. Short-term, year to 2 years. Do we want to think about splitting up adult and child? Do we want to think about other locations? We don't even have space here to bring them here. We might, when we vacate space right here where long-term care is that a good use of district funds and location? We need to assess that. Long-term, we still have the question of, as we're looking at building up the clinics to be a medical office, do we want to locate behavioral health services here on campus? Do we want to do just outpatient service? Do we want to do inpatient services? Combination. So we have lots of things we're looking at. And today I've been talking with Pinnacle Architecture. They have been actively building several sites throughout the state that are either outpatient mental health services, but also they're building a site right now in Hermiston that is a combination locked 16-bed unit with outpatient right in front of it, right on campus, all together. So they have some expertise. Then we're going to go look at the building, give us some advice. So that's kind of, so we will handle this. So when we look at the management phase, if we do get this license in it, the state was pretty confident that they would be able to extend that to us as of August 1st. We would go directly into the next phase, which is the operational phase. The 2.2 on the page 3 is one of the issues that council was concerned about. And that adds the language and that is bolded here or is in capitalized via statutory. So it says, as the effective date, the county will terminate by a statutory transfer as described in ORS 236, the employment of the employees listed on Schedule 2.2 that are currently the county employees. It is acknowledged that we are going to hire them as of August 1st. But there is some concern, or there's a discussion about, do we want to use that term, termination? Gwen and both our attorneys from Tonkin Total have recommended that that language be there because it defines liability issues. So if the county terminates their employment and we re-employ them, so there's no loss for the employees of their benefits or other issues, but there are some liability issues that protect the
For
district.
us or for them?
For us. It's a protection for us. They're still discussing it. And if we could, what I'm going to ask is that you approve it subject to, as the commissioner said, both sets, both legal advice on both sides, agreeing to exactly the language of this. We are asking for one, they're not certain. But it's close enough that it isn't going to be unbelievably, it won't be a stumbling block, let's say. During the operational phase, we are responsible for operating the service according to the ORS regulations. We will enter into an agreement with Community Counseling Solutions as of August 1st for 90 days. They have agreed to that. I don't have it in writing to present. They've agreed to that. That will give us the time to hire an executive director. And I'm pleased to say that we have a candidate who's coming today for an interview tomorrow. And that's scheduled for here tomorrow. There will be, the county is part of this agreement as has requested, and we would certainly grant them the ability to participate in the conference, in the interview process. We're also inviting the advisory board, it's a community mental health advisory board, which, by the way, will be reportable to you, not to the county. So
do you have a list of those?
I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
I will have it as soon as we'd asked for a list, but they've had some slight changes in membership. Oops.
Will the membership be appointed by us in the future? Or
it says that it is approved by you, the mental health authority, and we will be the mental health authority. Now the county, because by statute the county is always responsible, what we might do is have you approve them and then present that to the county for their approval. Just to, part of our agreement is that we will provide, as you see in 2.6, quarterly written reports to the county summarizing what we're doing, how things are going.
But it states there that the county will make the appointments.
In this agreement. What it says is that the county is still the ultimate authority from the state's standpoint.
But the parties acknowledge that the commissioners of the county or the county court will be appointing members of the Mental Health Advisory Board.
So the mental
That's
health,
contrary to what, I mean, I guess I'm confused. Do we appoint or the county?
what the ORS, as I read it, states, is that the advisory committee is reportable to the mental health authority. By being a CMHP, you'll be the mental health authority. But at the same time, the county is still ultimately responsible. So we could say that it has to be approved by the county. But you're not going to have a variance, in opinion, more than likely. And we'll follow the ORS, no matter what we state in an agreement. It will follow the state rules. Okay?
Do we need to put in a dollar number for the Lutheran issue?
The county does not have an answer on what that liability potential is. This is a billing issue, and at their advice, they have not pursued actively in the last 10 years exactly what it's a contentious issue. There's some dollar amount that Lutheran claims, there's some dollar amount that the county claims, both, and I have no idea what the dollar amount is. So that's why, while we're asking for that, we don't have a definition at this time. What we could do is ask the county to give us a rough estimate, but they don't have a clear answer. It is a known liability, but beyond that, we don't know how much of a liability that might be.
Should you just take out the dollars there?
If we can't come to a clear definition, then we will take that amount out.
Right.
But I'm anticipating that if we agree to all this, then we would have that resolved. The next part in 2.10C, or under B, we, as part of this agreement, would pay to, well, under C, that meets the state requirements for, it's actually out of the hands of the county, but we would still have some transportation issues that we will deal with. The county will pay certain, will pay to us pre-commitment holding and transportation costs. Depending on, and that's really defined by the court, not by the county. Under C, there was a question about what would happen if we, for whatever reason, don't want to continue delivering the service. At one point in time, the county requested that we put aside several $100,000 into a fund immediately in the event we don't deliver, that they would have startup money should they have to get somebody else to come in. What we agreed to is, at the end of 1 year, so 1 year from now, we would set aside in a fund, and it could be within our general fund, $200,000 that we book that we wouldn't touch. But in the event we can't deliver, we give it back to the county, we would pay the county. So
And still come out of mental health
still
dollars.
comes out of mental health practice. So what that does is that protects the county from us not fulfilling our obligation. And that's important for them, because their experience when Lutheran left was very difficult, and they did not have cash to deal with it. I don't anticipate we have to communicate that, but it gives them confidence. Any questions about that issue? 2.11, you can see that the county has the right to be involved in the interview process and selection. It doesn't give them the right to hire and fire. they give us their involvement. That is still our obligation. Under 3.1, that's where these mental health dollars, it's roughly 1.3. They know what the dollar amount actually is, but there is some issues that are still outstanding that potentially may increase it or decrease it. And frankly, every month that number will change as we have expenses and we have monies coming up. So when we talk about roughly $950,000 that's related to delivery of Medicaid services. The other dollar amounts are for services that are delivered as court directed, so DUI services or battery services or other services that are responsibility of being community mental health provider. So we're taking on that obligation. Covenants of the parties are pretty straightforward. If we terminate you see, we'll always be able to have an administrative fee at 4%. If we don't, that's if the deal falls apart. Otherwise, we would manage this as one of our clinics. And that's how we will treat this as a clinic. You'll see financial information like any of the other departments, any of the specialty clinics, the mental health clinic, any of the towns, you'll see it just exactly as you do for any, or radiology lab. You'll see the breakdown every month. And we'll provide that level of detail to you and track everything. So there won't be a problem there. With the management phase, as we anticipated that we would have approval, so under 3.5A, we would have that approval from the state no later than September 1st. If we have it by August 1st, that makes that issue, we meet the criteria there. And then we had the operational phase will be no later than October 1st. I'm sorry, December 1st would be the latest. That not knowing if there would be a delay or if the state would create unknown challenges. But again, I don't think we will have that. It doesn't appear that we will have that problem. And I will certainly let you know no later than Monday what I find. We're moving as fast as we can. The other components are not much different than what you had seen. There aren't really any changes from that original document. If, as per Henry O'Keefe's notes last night, it would appear to me that Gobi is very interested in negotiating a contract. I would anticipate entering into a negotiation process right away and would negotiate on behalf of the district. And if possible, if we can have one before the next board meeting, I can present that to you. If you give me the right to negotiate a Gobi contract. Very similar to what we did when we negotiated the contract with the CCO. Because we have already got an agreement for the Medicaid business with the CCO that we've done for many years. The risk components and all the features of that. It is my understanding that the Gobi agreements with other CMHPs, they're all very standard agreements. There's not a lot of variation. The risk corridors are very similar. When I met with Kevin Campbell, and you were a part of that conversation, he talked about making possibly the agreements a little bit different for some of the more remote facilities because of the known demand for additional resources that we don't have, that some of the larger communities do have. Do you recall that conversation? So it's possible that there may be some additional monies to help us boost our program. Bottom line that we know we have to, as you saw from that Gobi report, There's a lot of staffing needs that we've got to do. We have a lot of work to do. And it was great for Gobi to give us that advice. So it helped identify our opportunity and identify where we need to focus our attention. You see the issues of termination for cause in section 5.2. Should that occur, the general provisions are fairly straightforward. The signature lines, we would add in, it would be signed by all commissioners, all 3 commissioners. And that the district would either be signed by you as chair or just as me, or both, however you prefer.
Any questions? Ready for a motion?
Now, the motion needs to be subject to a couple of,
2.2.
yeah,
The issues that the commissioners have, you can approve this agreement subject to the same things, or this agreement saying that we will negotiate these issues with the advice of council. However you want to do it.
do you have a preference?
What I would appreciate is if you allow me to finish. Pardon?
Do the negotiation aspect?
There may be, a couple items. How do we define the liability, the unknown? We still have some exhibits to produce. We have the list of employees. We're working on an asset list that asks for the assets. Really, it's not going to be the building. There are vehicles. There are assets. We're not going to do an inventory. They're saying you get all whatever there is there. When it comes to current bills, they're trying to pay as much of the known bills that they've had as of earlier this week, but there will unquestionably be bills coming through in the next 60 days that either they didn't know of or people hadn't billed them timely or whatever. What our operational process is, we'll ask the advice of Jay and the county. If it's appropriate, we'll pay the bill. If it's, so we want to be as reasonable as we can in this process. So having these determinations is fine. At the same time, saying if you just let me be as reasonable with the county. We want to be accommodating. I don't want to give away the store and take on undue risk. And I think our advisors have been helping sure that as my instructions to when Griffin has been, make this agreement as straight down the line as we possibly can. It doesn't benefit the county or the district. Either way, it's fair for both parties. And that's been our goal all along.
So then I would so move that we approve the agreement for transition of outpatient comprehensive mental health treatment services and alcohol and drug abuse treatment services as presented, with the ability of our CEO to negotiate those items left without.
He had specifically asked subject to the attorneys agreeing on section.
Okay.
7. Their biggest concern was section 2.2.
Okay.
We still have dollar issues.
That's a statutory one?
Right.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And you can see that
Okay.
last.
Subject to, yeah.
Subject to agreement by both parties.
By legal counsel of both parties?
Well, legal counsel, but also making sure from a business standpoint, we have the right numbers, we have all that in place. And we're really close.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Jen, would you read that back?
Oh, that was clever.
I was gonna listen to his tape, actually. With the ability of the CEO to negotiate those remaining items, subject to the agreement of legal counsel of section 2.2.
Yes.
Did I get it?
Yes.
Okay.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's approved. I would make a motion that we authorize our CEO to contract with, what's their CC, what is?
Authorize the CCO?
No, the existing, no, Kim.
Oh, community
Community
Counseling
counseling services for continuation of management until we can replace them.
yes.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. What else did we need?
I think that's the key part right there.
Okay.
We are, as I said, we're moving quickly to get our application completed. We're making sure that we have, as part of the employee transfer, there are some very clear definitions of what the law requires, where you transfer from a public entity to either another public entity or a private entity, so that they don't lose benefits. We will follow the letter of the law. So some of the specific things related to that include the employees, when they transfer, they are allowed, they transfer all their benefits. Well, our benefits are a little bit different, so we have to make sure that we accommodate that. The law says that when we transfer the employees, they cannot have a drop in income. We can pay them more, but they cannot have a drop in hourly wage. But they are not guaranteed a job for a year, and that has to be very, so making sure that we accommodate those components. There is an opportunity for them to choose their retirement plan. And so this will be a unique thing, because they've been covered under PERS, which is different than ours. So they have the option of choosing whether they stay with PERS or not for 1 year, and then after that, they would be eligible to participate with ours, or change like that. Issues of seniority, they're protected for that.
So just so I'm clear, the PERS benefits would or could stay in effect for 1 year if the employee would choose. After 1 year, it would be hospital benefits?
That's correct.
Gotcha, okay.
Another issue that I believe we have resolved with the Teamsters is the emails say this, so I believe I have confirmation that when it comes to the health insurance, the employees, the aid employees, will, OTED, which is the Teamsters insurance, has agreed, they have 3 requirements that are absolute. Number 1, the employee must work 500 hours before they're eligible for Teamsters insurance. Number 2, the employee has to have worked 80 hours in the previous month to be eligible for the following month insurance. And number 3, they have to be employed. So if somebody worked in the month of August, they worked 80 hours, they actually worked, because 80 hours is really only 2 weeks, if they actually worked 160 hours, they would be eligible to work, to get insurance in September. So they've met their 500 hours, they've worked the 80 hours, but then they terminate it as of September 1st. They're not entitled to health insurance for that month. Okay? Makes sense? What OTED has agreed to is they will waive the 500 hours and they will accept that the employees had worked for 80 hours for the county and make it effective August 1st. So they made 2 exceptions to allow for that. So that's a really positive thing. It makes it so much easier. That's really great for those employees.
Right.
But we couldn't, I mean, those are their requirements. They had to make the exception. That's and we have that confirmation. So I think everybody is pretty well going through the process to make this as fair of a transfer, as quick as a process, and good for our community.
Charlie, will you have some type of an orientation meeting or question and answer for the employees once this is in effect? So they can sit down with you and say, what about this, or you understand that?
So I met with the employees last week.
Okay.
And I had my first initial, let's talk about questions. Yesterday, Leslie went and Holly and Paula from HR went and talked with staff. They had lots of questions, and frankly, our HR department doesn't know all of how this required benefit transfer works. I mean, this is very unique.
Yeah.
So we'll continue to offer and make sure that the employees, the new employees, will understand all their benefits and make sure that we don't do anything. And there's a possibility we'll make mistakes on it. And we just want to make sure that if we make a mistake, we fix it. One of the things, for example, that will be a benefit, I think, for the employees is we have a retention bonus. As you know, the first 3 years, then 5 years, and then every 5 years subsequent. So those employees that have been with the county, they will get those benefits. So if they've worked here 4 years, at the end of 5 years, that person will be eligible for that bonus. But we have to make sure we know, because there's a requirement of that 4-year work period, or 5-year period, how many hours they work. So if they work part-time, they don't get, it's not viewed as just a part-time, you have to count a number of hours.
Yeah.
So we validate all that information. So we're going through that and make sure it's fair for everyone.
Who's the acting director?
The acting director right now is Kimberly Lindsay. And then the on-the-ground person here is Chris Olwine. And he's here Monday through Friday. So when we'll be interviewing tomorrow, tonight and tomorrow, possible candidate, if that goes well, we'll go through that process. If not, we'll be looking for somebody as quickly as we can.
What about their email?
Email is in the process of being set up.
Will they be able to reach back into their files?
We haven't finalized all those things. Stephen Vance, our director of IT, was on vacation until yesterday, and frankly, he's said, I'm not going on vacation again for a while. To try and catch up.
Save something beforehand.
So we get those kinds of things. So what our intent is, we will get them on our email, we will get them on our system, but give them the ability to track their historical information. We still haven't sent our crew up to North Lake to look at what our responsibilities will be there. Everyone will be getting name badges, everyone will be getting locking systems, and we have all the protection issues that we have to do for employees.
Right.
To ensure, now that they are employees of the district, we have all of our obligations as we would with anyone. So it won't be all done by the first day. We will work toward it.
Do you have executive session items you want to go into? On your agenda?
No, I don't. I mean, I think some of this may have probably been, Jim may have recommended that we talk a little bit about this in executive session, but I want it to be as public as we can.
Right.
So no, I don't have.
Okay. Any other business?
Thank you, Charlie. I know this has been a big undertaking. It's
Still is.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's not over.
I want to acknowledge all the work that Jen is doing, because it's done on her a lot. So thank you for doing it. And Larry's helping out too,
Yes.
so we got a lot of people working.
Very good.
Good.